Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I want to revisit the Kyrie Irving, John Morant uh, contrast, the contrast between the two ways these situations were handled. But there's two stories I want to get to first here. It's another Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies.
They're dropping like flies.
Listen, people are dropping like flies out there.
I am
Boop.
pissed off.
We're dropping like flies around here.
We're dropping like flies here.
Jeez, sir, two more just went down. Dropping like flies.
Too many people around here been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast.
Biden's being Biden's being an extremist.
Crush that fly.
It says Hoda Kotb details daughter hopes really scary hospitalization. Well, she doesn't because she doesn't say what it was from. The daughter is 3 years old. And so she has a 3-year-old daughter. She seems kind of in her 50s, right? And here is her.
We are
Monday. Oh, here is your mint.
Oh, thank you.
As usual.
I didn't eat a mint for a long time because I was missing you, and I just have to say, you know when there are the people in your life that you just love with everything? They make your life full.
Yeah.
That's you for me. So I missed you.
Oh, is this so? She's so touched. The crazy Bush girl thinks Hoda's that person, right? Not her kids or husband. It's Hoda. You're that person for me. That person that's just the best thing in my life, right, Hoda? And Hoda's like, yeah, you're like 20th for me. Do I have to get a restraining order?
So much. I know that everybody watching missed you, and you're back, and I know
So
you've
happy to be back.
had a rough 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was. I feel like life is one way on a Monday, and we all have our Mondays, and we complain about them, and we're like, oh, what a crummy
Mondays, am I right?
Monday. And then like Tuesday rolls around, and something really hits hard, and you realize that Monday was actually pretty awesome.
Mondays are awesome when Tuesdays suck.
So for us, it was, little Hope had to go to the hospital, and she was in the ICU for a few days, and then the hospital for another week.
Tuesdays, am I right?
And it was really scary. And she's vibrant and brilliant. She's home. She's home.
Yes.
She's home.
Woo!
I'm over the moon that she's home. And I can't believe how amazing people are. Like, that's the thing I learned through all this.
People are amazing.
Like the nurses who stood by her all the way.
Those nurses are amazing. They had a 3-year-old in the hospital, and they didn't abandon her. They stood by her the whole time.
The nurses who checked on her constantly, the doctors who came in.
They checked on her all the time, even though she's, a 3-year-old.
The people who took care of us, and I felt like we were held. And, it's funny, I always talk about gratitude, but I found myself not living in that lane because I was scared.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Did you vax your daughter? Is your daughter vaxxed? Because, if this is just some normal, natural thing, then fine. It is what it is, right? Kids get sick, and young kids sometimes go to the hospital. It's, tragedy or, difficult situation. But is this something that could have been prevented, right? That's the question on everybody's mind. What exactly happened to her? Because your co-host, Al, suffered severe blood clots. People over the Today Show is dropping like flies. All these other people, right? Was it preventable? Was it something that was, vax related?
And then I decided, you know what? Let me think about this for a minute. I have a family who loves me. I have a little girl who's home. I have a wonderful support system. I have doctors who would have done anything to make everything better, and they did. So sometimes
You got a good life. The Tuesdays aren't so bad after all.
you talk about gratitude, and then when you're pushed to the limit, you're like, do I feel it? And I'm wearing this little thing that a friend of mine sent to me. And she said, I'm going to take it off my neck, and I'm going to send it to you, and it's worn down.
She took it off her own neck and sent it to Hoda.
because I rub it all the time. And
She rubs it. She's a rubber. She's got this thing that she rubs on her neck. And she sent it to Hoda. She's like, I'm taking this off my neck. I'm going to send it to Hoda. She can rub it. I've been rubbing it. Now Hoda can rub it.
it says, God's got this.
God's got this. And God's got this. You know, God has got this. And I'm going to rub the crap out of this thing because I know by rubbing it, it means God's got this more. I know God's got this just from this necklace, but if I rub it, it'll be even more. God will get it even more.
So she said, if I ever see you not wearing it, I'm coming to get you. But that's it. That's it. So anyway.
And a little thread at the end of it, right? A little weird bush laugh. If I see you not wearing it, I'm going to get you.
Hope is home and good. So.
Well, and she's got the strongest mama in the world. And I was thinking, you named her Hope.
I did.
You named her Hope for a reason.
By the way, Hope is...
Exactly. Named her Hope because you knew she was going to end up in the hospital. You knew she was going to have hope.
Everywhere. Now, once you say her name, like everything I look on every card, Hope always says, is that me? Is that me? And the other day
She's reading at age 3. She can read her name at age 3. She's quite a brilliant little girl.
It's just, she just got up from bed and she was so sweet and cute and she wasn't feeling great. And she had in her hand 2 little confetti stars. And I looked at her because I'd just gotten out of the shower and I turned and she was sitting there and she said, I got 2, Mom. And I said, oh my gosh. She goes, 1 for me and 1 for you. And I thought to myself, this child, even when she's not feeling good, she's still giving everything away. So
exactly. She's still giving stuff to her mom. She's still thinking about me, which is, what it's all about anyway. She's still thinking, about me and how she can make me happy.
Anyway, I feel blessed and grateful. Really, really, really grateful. And also, anyone who's ever gone through an illness with a child, boy, I thought I understood you, but I didn't until you're sitting in that position. So for every single person who's going through some stuff, I get it.
Yeah, well, you're here with us, and we're so happy, and we also know that a lot of your heart is there.
A lot of your heart is there. It's there with your daughter. You're not bringing your heart to work today, which we were said. Like, bring your heart with you, Hoda.
Should be, but we are proud of your bravery in every single thing.
I'm happy to be here, and I want to say thank you for everybody who was reaching out and stuff. I felt you, I heard you, I needed you. Sometimes you just say a quiet thank you inside. So,
I mean, do you know how many people? I was in Texas. Where's Hoda now? Hoda.
It's crazy. They were in Texas, and they still prefer Hoda over the crazy Bush girl. We were in Texas, Texas, where my dad lives. And they were like, where's Hoda?
My mom's like, where's Hoda? I'm like, Mom, it's going to be okay.
Can I say thank you to Willie?
My mom prefers Hoda as well. Jenna Bush, there's a time when she was like petrified of her grandma. So first she starts off here dancing the Macarena dressed as her grandmother. Look at her. She's crazy as F. There's something else. Maybe her interview with Michelle Obama. She's some serious crazy, right?
It is Jenna Bush, a.k.a. Mrs. Barbara Bush, getting into the 90s theme.
Did that just happen?
It's Matt Lauer. The now disgraced Matt Lauer.
That's Mrs. Bush to you, Savannah.
Yeah, it's a good look for you.
To the Renaissance Fair?
All right, that was fun. And you know what? This is a flash forward to what I'm going to look like in my golden years.
Jenna, I have to ask, does your grandmother know you dressed up this way today?
Well, she may know. Willie, I'm glad you mentioned that because we just happened to have someone
Look at her. She's freaking out.
who is joining us right now. Danny! First Lady Barbara Bush. Mrs. Bush, good morning. What do you think of our costumes and your granddaughter's likeness? Good morning. What do you think?
Well, I heard she was going to dress up like a witch, so I did too.
I didn't say that, Ganny. I didn't say that. That was Matt.
Look at her. She's all freaking out here. All crazy. Come on, Ganny. I didn't say you were a witch, Ganny. Don't lock me in the basement again, Ganny. Come on, Ganny. I'll be a good girl, Ganny. Don't eat me, Ganny. Come on, Ganny. I don't want to be eaten, Ganny. It was Matt, Ganny. Go eat Matt. Matt's going to be me too anyway. Eat Matt.
bomb, man. Everybody loves Willie, including me. So a big, big thank you to Willie and
Willie.
everybody else, Chanel, who filled in.
Willie is the bomb.
Love Chanel.
Yeah, we love
Love Chanel and Willie. Willie and Chanel. Willie and Chanel. They both, they're okay by themselves, but together they equal a whole Hoda.
Willie.
Chanel,
We're
we
so
love
lucky
Willie.
that
I'm so lucky.
we live. We work in a place like this.
We basically live here,
We
too.
do live here.
We live here.
All right.
Exactly. No time for your daughters. So here it is. Her children. So it's Coda is 57. So she's a year younger than me, and she's adopted 2 kids here, who are 4 and 2 years old. This is at the time of so she's 58 now. So she's my age, which is, to think about having toddlers. I mean, she has obviously money and nannies and things like this, right? But she has these 2 kids here who she's adopted. And Haley Joy 4 and Catherine and Hope Catherine 2, who had recently had COVID themselves. She has been vaccinated here, it says. The co-anchor, who is fully vaccinated, received a booster shot. She returned work on Monday morning. Those Mondays, am I right? After missing a total of 3 days last week due to a breakthrough infection, she's feeling good. But she also talked about how her kids had COVID, and then she got it. And so here is the video here.
You're feeling good?
Yes, feeling good.
How do you feel?
Good. I thought we already established that.
I mean, it's so weird. I know a lot of people are getting these breakthrough COVID cases,
Yes.
And
So she's fully vaccinated and boosted.
they're happening right and left. But how you're like, I'm good. I have a tickle in my throat. It's probably nothing. So it's always good to get that swab. And I did a rapid test
It's always good to get swabbed. There's nothing better than being swabbed.
before I came into work, and it was positive. And so over the next 5 days or 6 days, I just kept
Isolated.
trying to do all the things. Yeah. And my kids have had it. So a doctor was saying to me, you have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. You're not gonna where are you gonna isolate? You have to take care of your kids.
Yes.
So he did say, since they just had gotten over it, that I'd be okay. So we had some real family bonding time. But it just...
So her kids got COVID. She's fully vaccinated and boosted. The chances of her vaccinating her kids are pretty high. Maybe she's even talked about it, right? I'll go look for that now. But in terms of her kids having it, and now her kid's in the hospital, or was, with something severe enough for a 3-year-old to go to the hospital. And so, inquiring minds want to know. You can say you love your kids, right? You can, be all positive and be grateful, and you'll say God's got this. But if this has happened because of a vaccine-related issue, then you have to deal with that because you're a national figure on TV. And, there's a time we have to admit, the medical industry effed you or whatever it is, right? And that you're suffering. There has to be that kind of possibility lingering in your mind, right?
about rest and getting through it. And
then
I
feel good now.
I actually felt good
Yeah.
throughout. I tested negative on Saturday and Sunday and today, so I feel really
now
good.
you're here.
But you just get through it. So I feel like you keep hearing more and more about people who are getting it, and
Yes.
maybe that will lead to a bigger kind of immunity for everybody.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm editing and holy boop, right? Look at this crazy boop. Look at her eyes. I mean, look at this crazy. That is one crazy effort there. So this is back in, where's the date here? January of 2021. So this is right when they were started giving the vax, right? This is, back when it was just out, like Trump and this is January, the big January with Trump and the election and all those things, right? Hoda Kotb and Al Roker share their getting COVID vaccine. Okay, so here's the episode.
We're back, 8:13. Carson rejoins. Time for our series, Vaccinating America.
All right, guys, it is go time for Uncle Al. Now, Al,
Uncle Al,
before you get your vaccination here, remind everybody how you qualify.
Well, I qualify because I am over 65 years old. So now, but according to New York State.
Good that you're protected, Al. Like, you're not going to be on death's door in a year or two with all your,
I could apply, and all weekend long, I went on the New
If you remember, I covered this. Al had multiple blood clots, and he was in the hospital, and he barely made it out of there. That was like, this past fall.
New York State Health.gov website and kept logging in, had in my information, kept logging in. I finally hit pay dirt Sunday morning, and
He had pay dirt. He could get it.
got assigned here to Lenox Hill Hospital, and so that's how I made it. But it was a constant. I kept hitting refresh.
Boy, he couldn't wait to get that vax.
On the browser, and finally got in, guys.
You just got to stick with it, I guess.
Yeah, because look, they put up a certain number of appointments each day, and then, luck of the draw, and so you have to keep going in. For example,
It was just the luck of the draw.
I've got a brother, Chris, who runs New York City Health and Hospitals Metropolitan. He said, hey, you can come here. I said, I don't want to jump the line. I want to do this officially and above board. So I figured this was the best, and this was where I ended up, Lenox Hill Hospital, which just happens to be the place where both Nick and Leela were born.
Oh, sweet. Nice. Real quick, Al, I know a lot of people, and my mom included, we're trying to get appointments, and you can still hit it, and sometimes you don't get one till February, March, or April. Is there a way to try to, speed up the pace a little?
No, it really is where, depending on which facility puts on a number of appointments. They get the vaccine, they put in for those appointments. So if you're lucky enough, as I was, to get in now.
He's so lucky, Al.
Listen, it's been a tough slog. I'm not going to deny this. This has been the hardest one yet. And I've had my share of surgery.
We now consecrate the bond of obedience. Assume the position.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
It could have just as easily been February or March, but I lucked out.
They're going quick. There was 300 appointments at Lenox on Sunday.
Wow.
And from 9:07 to 9:15, they went like that. For the million plus, 65 and older in New York City, this is a tough thing, but we're glad you're there. What shot are you getting, Al?
Pfizer.
Well, I'm getting the Pfizer vaccine.
Boom. Called it.
In fact, let me bring in Dr. Daniel Baker. He's the medical director here at Lenox Hill. So I'm getting the Pfizer vaccine, Doc. This is 2 vaccines spread out over 3 weeks.
There's going to be some boosters too, Al. Booster.
Weeks?
Yes, over 21 days.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask the question because a lot of people, is it safe?
Absolutely.
It's absolutely safe. I got to ask it. I mean, I shouldn't even have to ask it. You're going to inject something in my arm. You're a medical professional. Medical professionals only kill 250,000 people a year with medical accidents. I mean, it's hardly any. And, but I got to ask it. There's never been any side effects to drugs or vaccines or pharmaceuticals before. So I got to ask the question just because, I know it's not true. But just because there's some crazy conspiracy theorists out there that might question the allopathic medical model that's based in perpetual illness and chronic illness and profit. And I might just ask you like this question. I might just have to ask you.
We get asked that a lot, but the clinical trials really showed its efficacy, and we've seen hundreds of thousands of doses since, and everybody's doing rather quite well. So
a lot of people want to know.
Exactly. We gave them the shot; they didn't die immediately, so they must be safe.
Once you get the vaccine, especially after you get 2 doses, do I still need to wear a mask?
Yes, that's
you got to wear a mask. Masks are important.
Actually a key component of keeping us all safe. We're not going to know who has had the vaccine. We're also going to take some time in terms of getting...
Because the vaccine has been proven that it doesn't stop COVID at all. There's been no testing on that. But I'll just say this thing we'll just pretend like what Jojo Magoo said was true, that it'll prevent you from getting COVID, which it isn't true at all, right? Even Pfizer is later. I'm going to admit this in 2 years that it doesn't help, but, still... We're going to pretend it does.
Up to enough people to where we can really take these masks off. So mask wearing is going to be with us for some time now.
Once I'm fully vaccinated, can I still be asymptomatic and spread COVID?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's not what the clinical trials looked at. So we're hopeful the answer is no.
It's not no.
Most diseases, when you get some immunity, we're hoping you wouldn't then be able to then transmit it. But we're going to see as these things go, and we'll have a little bit more information coming.
A lot of people are saying, well, I'm going to wait until we get herd immunity, so I don't really need to get vaccinated. Pop that balloon for me, would you?
Yeah, that's a tough one because herd
That's a tough one.
immunity really comes at about 85 to 90%. And the only way to get there is if
Okay, there was no herd immunity. The thing mutated. We all know it mutated itself out of existence, and then people lost interest and fear in it and moved on to other things. And so that's what happened with COVID. It wasn't anything to do with the vax or herd immunity.
everybody goes for the vaccine. We're going to get that 10 to 15% by people who couldn't get it because of a medical illness or something along those lines. So we all have to do our part. We have to go get the vaccine to really create that herd immunity.
So
We got to work together, get that herd immunity going.
First dose, what am I going to feel?
So the first dose, you're going to feel a little bit of the soreness in the arm there. So
It's going to feel kind of like Satan just got injected into your arm. You know, like Beelzebub. It's going to feel a little bit like Beelzebub being pushed into your body. And then after that, it'll just, it'll result in maybe some blood clots and hospitalization. But that first, it's going to feel like the devil coming into you.
So not unlike the flu vaccine, but you're going to be up and on the Today Show tomorrow morning, no problem.
All right. Well, and I know you got the vaccine, and when it first came here, you had mixed emotions.
Absolutely. It was very inspiring, incredible. It rolled right through the doors outside there, and we all stopped and actually took a selfie just with the box. It was just...
You just took selfies with the box, and I was crying, and I got kind of a boner, and it was an amazing moment.
An incredible, inspiring, hopeful moment.
Well, I've got a hopeful moment now, thanks
That you do.
to Nurse
Speaking of hopeful moments, remember Hope is the name of Hoda's daughter.
Jessica Kallard. Jessica, so I've answered a bunch of questions ahead of time, and so we're ready to do this?
We are.
So, Al didn't want to cut in line, right? Al didn't want to usurp the whole process. He waited. He used he didn't want to use his celebrity to cut in line and unsettle the cart, but he kept on refreshing it. He got in there, and then he dominated a doctor's time and a nurse's time. They could have vaccinated about 20 people, but they could have rolled them through. But Al just, he's monopolizing the hospital, and they've got a camera crew in there. So something tells me, Al, that your original story is a lie, that you're a liar, that this is something that you guys worked out together and you didn't have to do the whole thing that you said you had to do because you have a crew over there.
Okay. So now where do you do the vaccination itself?
So
you have to roll all the way up.
Yeah, it's pretty high. It's in your deltoid muscle, so it's just around here.
Deltoid muscle, right there, where they call it the Satan, the seat of Satan.
Okay.
Okay, and you answered no to all the questions. So,
Right.
Do you have any questions for me?
Did you get the shot?
I did.
How'd you feel afterward?
I felt good.
All right. Well,
I felt good. I felt better. It was like drinking a latte.
let's get ready. The question is, will I get a Hello Kitty Band-Aid?
Al's got jokes.
Al, so tell us what the doctors are saying about you coming back, because I look at you look dynamite, but you need time to heal.
Yeah, you lose a certain amount of muscle mass, for every week you're in the hospital. And I was in the hospital for 4 weeks.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
There we go, Uncle
Al's live vaccination.
Al, get his vaccination.
Get the shot. Al, think about happy things.
That's right.
Puppy dogs.
There we go.
Pies and cakes.
Wow, look at Nurse Jessica.
Boom.
Jessica.
Done and done.
That's excellent.
So, there's just a certain amount of weakness that I'm doing physical therapy every day, occupational therapy. I've got to just get my strength back.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Oh, there's Jessica. What a
Look at
pro.
Hoda clapping.
You're welcome.
Uncle.
And it's a generic Band-Aid, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you got a Band-Aid, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
What did you want to know? Chris?
Well, I was too late now. I was gonna ask the doctor if the shot's more effective in the rear end, but it looks like it's in the arm now. So.
He wants Al to get rear-ended. He wants Al to get a shot in the ass.
Carson wants to know, Doctor, could you have gotten it in the rear end?
Well, that answer is no.
Okay. Carson,
Deltoid.
thank you very much.
Carson likes it in the rear end.
Thank you. All right.
In the deltoid. See, I need some tats like Carson. That would have made this much better.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Al.
We're happy for you, Al.
Glad you're feeling good.
So Dr. Leanna Wynn, who has just been so unlikable for anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers. I mean, she was probably the most disliked person. And I came across a TED Talk. I've covered this here, I think, on this channel, but I did a video on it. And she had a TED Talk where it was all about doctors' trusting your doctor, and doctors being transparent. And she developed some sort of a website so doctors could tell people what they believed in, what their politics were, what they were as a person, to be more humanized, right? Which, kind of is a good idea. But I contrasted that with her horrible positions. But now she seems to have almost completely reversed herself, right? Where she has changed her opinion about masks and COVID and vaccines. I mean, it's like a complete 180. And people still are pretty bitter about, the way she was before. But, she's one of the first people to come around who knows why that is, whatever it is. But here she is with these three dopes, right? And she's, and I just have another thing to get to with Kevin O'Leary and these guys tomorrow. I just saw, so that's interesting. These guys are actually a part of the news cycle unintentionally because they're guests. But this happened.
Doctor, these are two separate things here, overcounting deaths and overcounting hospitalizations. As you know, I covered this closely being in the Trump White House when this happened.
Wait a minute there, pumpkin. It wasn't just the Trump White House when this happened. It happened under the Biden White House.
There's a lot of health officials about this who are actually kind of skeptical of this claim that you're making. And I think one big thing has been, what is the evidence that these COVID deaths are actually being overcounted?
Well, this is the reason why this kind of transparent reporting is going to be so important. There is a way for us to look at death certificates and also to look at the medical records of individuals prior to their death. And I think this needs to be separated into three categories. One is the COVID as a direct contributor, the primary cause of death. The second is, could it be a secondary contributing cause? So, for example, somebody with kidney disease, COVID then pushes them over the edge to have kidney failure. That's COVID as a contributing cause. And then the third is COVID as an incidental finding. So somebody coming in with a gunshot wound or a heart attack and they happen to test positive. I think that we need to separate out and look at the percentages of each. That percentage would have shifted over time as well. In the beginning, probably a lot more people were dying with the primary cause of COVID. That probably has shifted. And I think, again, we need to understand this. Another reason to understand this, too, is a lot of people are wondering when they should get a booster next. When do we need a second booster or another booster? And the only way we can know for sure is to understand who is getting severely ill. And
Doctor, these are
okay. So it's a little bit too late for her, but whatever. I just don't care. Like, it's all an S show. It's all a boop show. But there's a much easier way to know this, and what she said is valid, right? You could go in and figure out why they were overcounting COVID deaths, which we all know happened. But the CDC said it themselves. So this was released a while ago. I mean, a year and a half ago, right? This is something that was up. And once this came up, people posted this, and the media and the medical community went into defense mode and tried to gaslight everybody in terms of what they're seeing here. Table 3 shows the types of health conditions and contributing causes mentioned in conjunction with deaths involving coronavirus disease 2019. The number of deaths that mention one or more of the conditions indicated is shown for all deaths involving COVID-19 by age groups. For over 5% of these deaths, COVID-19 was the only cause mentioned on the death certificate. For the deaths with conditions or causes in addition to COVID, on average, were 4.0 additional conditions or causes per death. So 5% of the deaths were just COVID. Every other COVID death, there was an average of 4 other comorbidities, right? There was some other things that were other conditions that were severe enough that they could cause death on their own, right? And so we're talking about cancer, heart disease, all these things. And so when this came out, that meant that they were over-reporting COVID deaths. The people who were dying from COVID were already in the death process and had severe illnesses. And so COVID, for the most part, was, and we don't know about that 5% because maybe they had something that was undiagnosed. And so COVID itself wasn't really killing people largely, right? Very small number of people. That COVID was just killing people who didn't have anything else. But it also speaks to the people who were dying, who were, people with very poor health, compromised immune systems, things like this. And they hit the panic button, and they closed down society for something that, it sucked. I had it. It sucked. I'm not going to minimize how bad it sucked. It did suck. Like, it wasn't like it was great, but it wasn't killing people like they said it was. And they made it something much worse and scarier than it was. I mean, right now you're killing yourself. Most people are killing themselves with the food they eat, carcinogens and things like that, right? I mean, all these things, things to do with heart disease. So the issue remains, like, you might want to talk about it being a depopulation agenda, whatever people have as theories for this, right? Whatever reasonable or unreasonable theories there are. But there's one thing that's a fact. And Pfizer is Pfizer and these other pharmaceutical companies are for profit. And they spend a lot of money on advertising, and they buy a lot of, influence in this is something I showed you with Rand Paul and Fauci. And Rand Paul said that there was something like $93 million spent on 1,800 employees for the NIH, right? Got money from pharmaceuticals in terms of royalties and things like this. And so this is big business. And allopathic medicine is a for-profit business. And the pharmaceutical companies make money off of you being sick and perpetual sickness and perpetual crisis. And a crisis like this, where there's a lot of fear, and if you drive up the numbers of deaths, and you create a lot of fear and panic, and you create a lot of, victim consciousness and, hopeful, wishful thinking, you can get people to spend taxpayer dollars, billions of them, to go to these companies, and those companies can then pay off politicians and media and things. And so it's a cycle of profit that's here. Like, aside from everything else, a lot of money was made here, billions upon billions of dollars. And so by ramping up the numbers, there's that. And that's undeniable. They can say whatever they want. But, profit was made, and they exaggerated the severity. And it sucked. Like, I'm not minimizing. I had 3 COVIDs, right? I had COVID 3 times. I had the original COVID in, like, March this time, 3 years ago, I guess now, 2020. And so that sucked. And I had trouble breathing. My wife got it. She had it, almost as bad as I did. And then we got Omicron again. We got Omicron then, a year and a half later, and that sucked in its own way. And then we got COVID again. It was only a week long. It wasn't nearly as bad, but it was still sucky, right? Worse than the flu. And I hadn't been that sick like in years. And so, it sucked. I'm not going to minimize it. It did suck, but it wasn't as bad as they said it was, at least in terms of the death toll. So I wanted to revisit this thing with Kyrie Irving versus the thing with Ja Morant. Nike officially terminates partnership with Kyrie Irving. And then here, the Memphis, that was from a while ago, right? So that was, something that happened, whatever the thing with the tweet and all that stuff. The so-called anti-Semitic film, all the rest of it. That's, very recently from Nike. The Memphis Grizzlies held a players-only meeting to discuss off-court row discipline with Steven Adams leading the charge. After the meeting, Ja Morant still went out on a party at the club, which led to the gun incident. And so he was even being, sort of warned and talked to. The players say that he was talking directly, he was talking to the group, but he was obviously concerned most with John Morant. And the team was even coming in to try to, save this guy from himself. But he didn't listen, right?
To have a Nike signature shoe. They've never had a player like John Morant.
So this is why I wanted to add this to the video. Nike John Morant had a signature shoe, a signature Ja shoe. So Nike has deals with lots of players, and they have their own shoes, their various Air Jordan brands, right? I don't think they had Kobe for a while, whatever it is, right? They have LeBron now. And certain players have their own shoes. Now, Kyrie had this shoe. It had a lot of Illuminati stuff on it, whatever. I covered it. A lot of, like the pyramid of the capstone, whatever, right? This is, when I was critical of him, before the vax stuff. But he had this Illuminati pimped out shoe, and it was the Kyrie, right? Now, very few players have that. Very few players have their own shoe that's named after them. Like this came with the Air Jordan brand, and then they, occasionally they have a player that's great enough that they can do that. That has enough popularity that they have their own signature shoe. And now Ja Morant has one.
I know that there are dozens of NBA players who would kill to have a Nike signature shoe. And Nike went out of business with Kyrie Irving and into business with Ja Morant because they're such a believer in him.
So what a huge statement this is, right? Nike, which had no problem with slave labor and child labor to make these shoes, and got criticized for it and still has issues with it even today, and numerous corporate scandals. Kyrie Irving stood up for himself, and not even that. Like, he went against the mainstream narrative, and they demonized him, and Nike dropped him. And now Ja Morant has had punky behaviors, far worse, selfish. What Kyrie Irving did. Well, let me get into that in a moment, but think about the difference here. And him saying that Nike went out of business with Kyrie Irving to go into business with Ja Morant. And like, Ja Morant's way worse. There's just no question.
I know that the NBA isn't starting an investigation.
And he goes on to say that they never closed the original investigation. They've been concerned about him for over a year. It's just coming out now. I didn't know anything about it till like last week. I mean, I saw that they were very punky. It's a young team, and you go through your dummy and your punky phases in your teens and your early 20s, entitlement, attitude, right? And, some people get it even worse than others. And Ja Morant, who grew up in a two-parent family with, money and support, is acting like he's some sort of a gangster. People are calling him out for being, a poser, all these things. I mean, on top of all the stuff that's going on. And there's a $500 million max contract, a $500 million contract at stake in the very near future for him. He has a $200 and something million contract now. Signature shoe with Nike, a commercial that his dad narrates for Powerade, right? He's getting big endorsement. One of the number one celebrities in the city of Memphis. I mean, this kind of thing. Kids looking up to him. And he's brandishing guns and acting like a punk and doing things that are, socially unacceptable. Far worse than Kyrie Irving. And my point has been, and I would want to re-emphasize it because, the double standard here is so glaring. Because you can act out. You can do things that are, considered normal acting out behaviors. You can have your moment, like Justin Bieber had his moments. And, it's good for the media. It's good for the business. It's good for, all the, just to keep a story going. It's good for distractions. They don't mind that. They don't mind this with Ja Morant. They can say, all right, let's make sure that we turn him into a good person and he apologizes. You see these things. Comes in out of rehab, whatever they do, right? They do these things. Reprogramming centers. It's good. It's good for it's good for the beast. But somebody like Kyrie Irving doesn't get the vaccination. And he doesn't even say anything about it. He doesn't encourage other people to do that. It's just that he couldn't play because of these bogus laws in New York. Got a big thing with Mr. Wonderful from the, I'm going to cover that tomorrow on my other channel, to do with that and how, the businesses just don't want to go. It's, these cities are uninvestable, as he puts it, right? And, these New York and California and these places, these states and cities, these blue cities have bankrupt themselves and, have made themselves anti-business, anti-everything. They had these bad laws in New York for vaccination requirements and mandates that turned out to be unconstitutional. And Kyrie Irving didn't go along with it. He was right. He was demonized. And, much worse than Ja Morant. Because the rule here is, and I just need to say this again, that no matter what you do in terms of bad behaviors, if it's within the scope and framework, and it can be criminal behaviors even, they'll come down on you. But they'll say, oh, you're just, we're trying to help you, these things. But if you go against the system, you question the the validity of the narrative, you call out the system itself, then that's the worst crime you can commit. That's, they try to banish you for that. Don't call into question the system. And that's what Kyrie Irving did, right? Whatever reason, whether he's part of it, whatever, controlled opposition, doesn't matter. The treatment that he got is far worse than what John Morant got. And, Nike, which sucks, is an evil corporation. They dumped Kyrie for a guy who's much worse, right? I mean, it's just so evident. All right, let's move on to the other stuff here. DeSantis praises wife's fight against cancer at State of the State address. Did he have a son named Mason there? I thought I heard him say.
Joined here by our First Lady, my wife, Casey. We got Mason on the lap. There he is, sitting there.
He's got a Mason.
Over the past 4 years, she spearheaded efforts to help our youth avoid drugs, promote emotional resiliency in schools, and
drop a Mason out of her vajayjay.
Provide a pathway to prosperity for the less fortunate. She also gave birth to our daughter, Mamie, and most recently fought a battle against breast cancer. I was here last year saying we would be able to announce that she was cancer-free, and I can tell you she is cancer-free and she is doing better than ever.
Woo! She beat cancer. Woo! Hospital water purification system stripped out chlorine, killing 3 patients. It was supposed to improve the taste, but instead led to deadly infections. Water purification systems installed in 2 ice machines in Boston Hospital were supposed to make water to taste and smell better for patients on a surgery floor, but ended up killing 3 of them. An investigation found the Purity system inadvertently stripped out chlorine, which is a form of bleach, from the municipal tap water, allowing bacteria normally found at low levels to flourish and form biofilms inside the machine. This led to infections in 4 vulnerable cardiac surgery patients who had prolonged stays on the hospital floor. 3 of them died of their infections. Again, like with the COVID stuff, yeah, but this wouldn't have killed like a healthy person, right? It's a comorbidity. Family suing Airbnb, others over toddler deadly fentanyl exposure. A family is suing an Airbnb after their 19-month-old daughter died of apparent fentanyl overdose while staying at the Florida property. Enora Lavanier, sounds like a witch's name, had gone down for a nap during a 2021 vacation to Wellington, Florida lake house. When the girl's parents tried to wake her, they were met by every parent's worst nightmare. So I guess the child died from sudden death syndrome. That's what they thought. Autopsy report ultimately showed there were traces of fentanyl in the toddler's system. Now Levanier's family is suing the Airbnb and the unit's previous renter who booked the stay through another vacation rental, Verabo, as well as the property manager and owner. Well, I mean, what? Like we don't know who left the fentanyl there, or even if they got it at the Airbnb. You'd have to find traces of it at the Airbnb. They ain't going to win that lawsuit. Well, hopefully they won't, because that doesn't make any sense. I was dying. Man 39 thought he had bronchitis. It was heart failure. It's crazy when that happens. Plus, he's a Baltimore Ravens fan. There he is with his kids. The lack of energy seemed to hang around, he tells Today. For weeks afterward, 4 or 5 o'clock would roll around. I was absolutely drained. Then a cough developed. He was lying down. He visited an urgent care clinic, which diagnosed him with pneumonia and bronchitis. After taking medication for a few days, his condition didn't improve. It worsened eventually and ended up in the emergency room, and later received a surprising diagnosis, heart failure. Very common. It's not surprising at all. Virginia actor Sarah Lane dies at 73 after a long battle with breast cancer while she was, getting older. So, I mean, this is not so much a dropping like flies, but still, a lot of cancers. Hayden Panettiere gives first interview since Brother Jansen's death. He's right here with me. Right there with her. He died of heart failure. What do you think about that, Wendy? Wendy, what do you think? What do you think about that? Ambulance turned away from Auckland Hospital's full emergency room. I think I covered this last time. I just left it up there, but hospitals are still filled with whatever. Things you don't see anymore. A typewriter. And that dude, NFL star Joe Mixon's house cordoned off by police. Sister says he's uninvolved with the shooting.
Running back Joe Mixon's house was cordoned off by police last night, but Mixon's sister says he was not involved in the alleged shooting.
I just said that.
Now, according to a Fox 19 Now report, police surrounded Mixon's home after officers responded to shots fired in the area late Monday night. The shooting was reported at around 8:30 p.m. in Anderson Township.
Okay, so that happened. Emma Hemming Willis, who is Bruce Willis's wife, is upset at the paparazzo.
So in service of raising awareness around dementia, because that is my goal, if you are someone that is looking after someone with dementia, you know how difficult.
Wait, you're looking after someone with dementia? We've covered her before. She likes a lot of attention.
And stressful it can be to get someone out into the world and just to navigate them safely.
It's so stressful for her. She has it so rough. She's always complaining on Instagram about her life when she, gold digged for Bruce Willis and married a much older man who, turns out to be having dementia.
Even just to get a cup of coffee. And I'm just seeing headlines. And there's a video of my husband out getting some coffee with some friends that did a stand-up job with protecting him. And so in the spirit of raising awareness.
And what? Boom. That's it? You don't have anything else? There's no other part two? So yeah, she's often complaining about her lot in life.
I truly appreciate all the love and the understanding as to why my husband should not be followed. But what I find interesting is that the outlets that are picking up this story of my plea are the same outlets that are publishing these pictures of my husband.
Like the New York Post, where I found it. It's crazy. They publish the pictures and then they post my video of me whining about it. And I don't know what's going on here.
So if there's no market for this type of content, then he wouldn't be followed. Just some food for thought.
Sure. They're gonna stop now because, your plea.
I just saw something about me getting my 5 minutes, which is great, which means that you're listening. So I'm going to take my 5 minutes and I'm going to turn it into 10.
She's had 5 minutes before. She's going to take her 5 minutes, turn it to 10 minutes. She's had 5 minutes before.
Because I'm always going to advocate for my husband. And while
myself in the process.
I'm at it, I'm going to raise awareness around FTD and for caregivers who are our unsung heroes out there.
Are you an unsung hero? Sounds like you are.
And then I am going to turn my grief and my anger and my sadness and do something good around something that feels less than. So watch this space because I didn't come to play.
Boom. She didn't come to play. So there's a bunch of things she's posted. There's her, dementia-ridden husband. There's M. Night Shyamalan for some reason. And there was a bunch of other posts she had in the past where she was complaining about Bruce and his vegetable-like condition. So I want to say something else about this. One of my longtime viewers and supporters of this channel has a similar situation, right? Her husband has had dementia, some sort of dementia for years. She wrote something about it on Facebook, like something that was thoughtful and, helpful, not a celebrity or a person looking for attention, but just explaining the situation. And she did something admirable, which was to stick by her husband, right? Because, people suffer from something like this. People have gone through this with parents and, especially if it's a spouse, something like that, and you're no longer getting anything back in your relationship. You're just taking care of somebody who's sick and, but it's part of the deal, right? And it's no longer considered that because people are weak and, people have commitments until things don't work out for them anymore with the onset of divorce and things like that, right? But sometimes your situation just sucks because you have someone in your life that has special needs. And when you go through that, I suffered in a different way. People have relationships with people who have mental illnesses and children with people who have mental illnesses and things. And it's draining and it's sucky and, and oftentimes you're trapped in a situation for, the kid's sake or whatever it is, or you have a child like that, whatever it is, right? Sometimes that's your deal in life. And it just sucks. Like there's, there's, in terms of material life, it's not a good deal. People get bad deals all the time, whatever they are, right? And you just have to endure them and, whatever. Like it's just something you have to go through and you have to accept it and learn to be grateful for it and, figure out ways to cope, right? It's just, most people run away from things when they get tough nowadays, and that's because of a lack of character, a lack of commitment, but there is spiritual benefit for enduring something that you're supposed to go through, that your soul wants to experience. I don't know about this case, she married a famous movie star and, he crapped out on her and now she's got to go on Instagram and whine about it. But, like you can, in other circumstances, you can just understand their spiritual benefit for enduring a difficult circumstance. And everyone gets something like this. They experience something like this, have something difficult in their lives. It seems unfair, but if you look at it and you approach it the right way, it has huge spiritual benefit. But anyways, let's move on here. Also, I should add to this that these papers are heartless, right? These gossip, Page 6, the National Enquirer, TMZ, they're heartless. They don't care really. If you make some emotional plea, they know it's wrong. They spy on people, basically. They stalk people for a living, right? Spy on them. And, the people don't like it, but need it. The celebrities love it, but hate it. It's a whole thing. And just because you complain about something on Instagram, they're not going to change, right? Paris Hilton calls getting an abortion at 22 an intensely private agony that's impossible to explain. I was living my best life. I was having a wild child moment, and it was sort of glorious. It all came crashing down when I realized I was pregnant at 22. It was like waking up on the ledge outside of a 40th floor window when she realized she'd have to care for another human being. I was terrified and heartsick, knowing how pregnancy hormones sent my ADHD symptoms spiraling. Everything I knew about myself was at war with everything I've been raised to believe about abortion. No one can ever know how hard it is to face this impossible choice unless she's faced it herself. I had nothing to do with him or the baby. I just wasn't capable of being honest or loyal or whole. Something to do with Tommy Hilfiger. After suffering abuse at the Provo Canyon School and 3 other programs with the Troubled Teen Industry Network, I was damaged in ways I couldn't tell him about. And the fact is that I never confided him about my past, And that says it all, doesn't it? Secrets are corrosive. They destroy anything you try to layer over them. Okay, so she obviously had a ghostwriter. Okay, so there are some other things here. There's a thing on Sharon Stone, which I'll get to, and things on Madonna, Madam Expiration Day, a few other things. This is already a long video, and I got something else to do now. So I got to cut the end short. I'll just add it to my next one. But there's two things I just want to mention. There's a video I covered on Dr. Berg about the sun and melatonin, and I forget the exact title about it, but some of you guys might remember. It's linked or it's there in my last video, or it's 2 videos ago on this channel. And I forgot to say, he had a story of these farmers that lived next door to him who were eating the worst types of foods, and they had bad diet, and they were both like smokers, and they were old, and they were still outside working every day, really healthy, and because they were out in the sun all day. Of course, they were away from Wi-Fi and things like that. I experienced this. There was these farmers that sold My Family Hay, the Badgetts, and they were nice people. Went over their house, and they had, they grew food, so they had some good quality food, but they ate a lot of crap, Velveeta and processed foods. And they were in their 90s, and they were out there farming they were still in relatively good shape. So that's something, being outside and being in the sun and things like that. And he was talking about the sun and it creating melatonin and mitochondria, all these things. I talk about this in the video. And the second thing was somebody sent me a link in which it was a video where there's a guy saying there were 2 supplements that attacked the spike protein in COVID and destroyed it. And it was bromelain and pineapple and NAC. And again, I don't recommend things here. I'm not saying, what people should do. I'm not a, medical person. I just somebody who's doing my best to cope with my personal health as, I have recovered from COVID and I've gotten older. But I craved pineapple, especially pineapple juice, when I had Omicron. Like I couldn't get enough of it, right? When I was like maybe ordering from, maybe Whole Foods or whatever it was. And it was high in sugar and maybe it caused me some problems. But there's also the supplement bromelain, that's in pineapple. And, I found that it's something, it's a digestive enzyme, and, you can take too much of it because it could cause problems with your stomach as well. But it's, it's just like all these supplements. You got to figure out the proper balance and when to stop for a while and all those things, when you need it and when you don't. But there are things out there they're discovering now that could have helped with COVID. Okay, so that's it for now. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.